Kids Next Door is one of the most iconic shows to come from Cartoon Network. And that's really saying something when you look at the catalog of shows that they put out. But it's not hard to really figure out why. I mean, who didn't dream of joining the K&D as a kid and going off and fighting against adults? But now that I'm an adult, and incredibly boring, I can't help but wonder just how much it would cost to run the Kids Next Door worldwide. And I guess consider this your spoiler warning for a cartoon that ended like 11 years ago. So the first task we're going to undertake for this video is trying to put a number on just how many sectors there actually are in the Kids Next Door. And that's a pretty weird number to try and nail down. In one interview, series creator Mr. Warburton stated that there was a K&D sector in every town and city in the world. That's a lot. And obviously there's no way to quantify a number that high. So what I'm planning on doing is taking the amount of cities that are in the world, 4,416, and triple that number in an effort to try and account for the larger and smaller towns across the world. That would mean there are 13,248 sectors of the K&D across the world, and if there are 5 members in each sector, there would be 66,240 active members of the K&D, not including some trainees and the few odd people living on the moon base. Try and keep some of those numbers in the back of your mind moving forward because they'll be coming back a couple of times throughout the video. Next, let's move on to arguably the biggest staple of the series, the 2x4 technology. Throughout the series and some companion books that were released, we've seen a total of 282 different forms of 2x4 technology. Let's assume that each sector has at least one of these, or at least if they don't have one specific type of 2x4 technology, they might have 2 types of another. So to find this number, we'll be multiplying the types of 2x4 technology by the number of sectors in the K&D, which gives us a total amount of 3,735,936 pieces of technology scattered throughout the different sectors of the Kids Next Door in some way, shape, or form. But they wouldn't just be replacing their entire arsenal of technology each and every year. Instead, we'll be estimating that they're replacing an average of 20% of their arsenal per year, which is a reasonable estimate considering that the entire organization is actually just a bunch of children. 20% would be 747,188 pieces of technology. So now let's get into the reason they're called 2x4 technology, which I can hopefully stop saying pretty soon. According to the Home Depot website, a 2x4 stud costs $2.31, which is actually pretty reasonable. But some of these weapons and vehicles use many more than one piece of 2x4, and some don't use any. For our math, we'll be using an average of 10 pieces per 2x4 technology, which means that each piece of technology is costing an average of $23.10. I know that many of the pieces of technology use other parts, but that's likely coming from dumpster diving or just recycled parts of other things, so we'll be able to kind of ignore that. So per year, they're spending around $17,260,042.08. Speaking of their 2x4 technology, the K&D does put on a pretty huge convention each and every year. Renting out the Pennsylvania Convention Center in Philadelphia for a Friday and Saturday can run around $20,000, which is what we'll estimate this at. Now that their weaponry is taken care of, let's talk about their power needs. As we know, the Kids Next Door is run almost entirely on hamster power. They have tons and tons of hamsters that basically run in hamster wheels and generate electricity for each sector's tree houses. But just how much electricity can a hamster generate, and how many hamsters would be needed? Well, to do this, we'll have to talk physics, which is something I'm not super comfortable with because of my donkey brains. Fortunately, I found a website that did the majority of the work, but I'll do my best to try and explain their process. So, according to them, a hamster can typically put out around 0.5 joules per second. There are around 31,540,000 seconds in a year, which means that if a hamster never needed to take a break, it could put out 15,770,000 joules, or 15.77 megajoules each year. The average American house uses around 38,880 megajoules per year. That means 2,466 hamsters would be required to fully power a home each year. But that's assuming that the hamsters did nothing but constantly run every second of every day, week after week, month after month, which is not a remotely reasonable assumption. So instead, we'll be tripling that number and giving each hamster a roughly 8-hour shift, which is more likely considering that these hamsters are much more intelligent than normal hamsters. This would mean that an average house in the US would need 7,398 hamsters to more efficiently power a home. But a K&D sector would likely use more electricity than the average US home. So we'll be doubling the amount of hamsters needed to try and account for this, which means that each sector of K&D has 14,796 hamsters. Now we can multiply that number by the amount of sectors that the K&D has, which means the KND is 196,017,408 hamsters spread across the world. On the low end, hamsters cost an average of $100 per year, which means the KND is spending $19,601,740,800 per year on their hamsters. Next, let's move on to some of the more extreme tree houses that the Kids Next Door has, starting with their moon base. A big portion of the cost of setting up a moon base would actually come from the process of launching and landing different shuttles with whatever would be needed to build and maintain a base on the moon. In fact, Wendover Productions did a really good breakdown on the logistics and cost of how expensive it would be to have 4 people live on the moon for a year, and you should absolutely go check out that video after this is done. But unfortunately, a lot of what they estimated that would be huge expenditures don't quite apply to the KND. Let's go through some of them. We can talk about 2 of the problems at the same time, as they actually kind of fix each other. So let's work under the assumption that they have a pretty good sized green room that can grow their own food. Well, they would likely need manure and some kind of power to help the plants grow. Well, the hamsters would be able to take care of that pretty well, and the plants would be able to provide the base oxygen. In fact, they really wouldn't even need to import water if they're able to mine the water that resides on the moon as ice. For this reason, we'll be estimating that the moon base is costing little to nothing actually. Honestly, we can assume the same for the other 2 strange bases, the Deep Sea Lab and the Arctic base. They'd be able to be relatively self-sufficient after their initial setup, which is something that they wouldn't need to do each and every year. Now let's start totaling up those numbers. The 2x4 tech is costing $17,260,042.80. The annual hamster costs are $19,601,740,800, and they would be spending an additional $20,000 per year on their 2x4 convention. This means that each year the Kids Next Door is spending $19,619,020,842.80. To put that into perspective, that'd be $1,480,904.35 per sector, or $296,180.87 per individual member of the Kids Next Door. And as to how they're getting that money, well, your guess is as good as mine. But anyways, this has been 10K Bill, and thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter at 10K Bill to yell at me about anything I may have missed. Support us on our Patreon if you like the show and want to see more like it. Comment down below what you'd like to hear me talk about next, and of course, make sure you subscribe for all your entertainment-related content.